In this video I will show you how Robert Card, the 2023 Maine mass shooter, was covertly harassed, tortured and pushed into committing his violent acts. He was a victim of gang-stalking and his brain damage shows evidence that he was assaulted with a directed energy weapon. The false label that he was a mentally ill schizophrenic concealed the evil being done to him. He was a targeted individual. Gang-stalking is a form of community mobbing, organized stalking and organized harassment combined. It is hidden by smearing the victim as mentally ill. It is the targeting of an individual for revenge, jealousy, sport, or to keep them quiet. It's widespread and growing. Some describe this harassment as a psychological attack that can completely destroy a person's life, while leaving little or no evidence to incriminate the perpetrators.
An update now to that breaking news story out of Lewiston, Maine, just north of Portland. Authorities are working on an active shooter situation at 3 separate locations. Authorities now say there are more than 10 dead with dozens more injured. The shooting began at a local bowling alley, followed by reports of shots fired at a local bar and a Walmart distribution center. The Androscoggin County Sheriff's Office posted these photos to Facebook. They say this is the suspect they're looking for, and he remains at large tonight.
Officials confirming at least 18 people have been killed and 13 others wounded after a heavily armed gunman opened fire at 2 locations in Lewiston, Maine. Authorities releasing these surveillance images showing the suspect, 40-year-old Robert Card, as he entered a local bowling alley that was hosting a youth night for a kids' bowling league.
Out of nowhere, he just came in and there was a loud pop. Thought it was a balloon. I had my back turned to the door.
Police say Card then allegedly traveled about 4 miles to a bar and restaurant where police allege he shot several more victims. And since then, he's been on the run. Card's white Subaru, pictured here, was found at a boat launch in Lisbon. Officials say he owns a boat as well as a motorcycle.
He should be considered armed and dangerous. We believe this is someone that should not be approached.
Hundreds of federal, state, and local law enforcement agents joining forces to try and track him down. A shelter-in-place advisory is in effect for several communities. Many schools and businesses in the state closed as the manhunt continues.
I do ask the public to continue to be mindful of their own personal safety.
Over the summer, Card was deployed to a military training center in upstate New York to support training for West Point cadets. A defense official telling ABC News that back in July, he was behaving erratically and out of concern for his safety was taken to a mental health facility for evaluation. He spent 2 weeks there and allegedly threatened to shoot up a National Guard facility in Maine.
One source telling me this is the worst case scenario involving a highly skilled gunman who is irrational. Card is a firearms expert and Army reservist with a history of mental illness.
Flags at the White House and across Maine have been lowered to half-staff in memory of the victims. Now, according to the Gun Violence Archive, this is the 565th mass shooting here in the U.S. this year alone, and it is the deadliest since the massacre in Uvalde. Rena Roy, ABC News, Lewiston, Maine.
Suspected Maine mass shooting suspect has been found dead. Good evening, I'm Natasha Verma.
And I'm Steve Lacey. This ends the manhunt for suspect Robert Card, accused of killing 18 people on Wednesday night, and comes on the same day authorities released pictures of all 18 victims.
Let's get right to Fox 5's Stephanie Bertini in the newsroom with the latest. Steph?
Natasha, Steve, officials in Maine just confirming mass shooting suspect 40-year-old Robert Card was found just before 8 p.m. tonight in Lisbon, Maine. That's just miles from where the massacre took place. The governor of Maine says now the healing can begin. Law enforcement says the investigation is far from over. This comes after an intense manhunt that included a shelter-in-place order as law enforcement looked for the man they say opened fire at 2 locations in Lewiston, Maine, a bowling alley and then a bar and grill 4 miles away. 18 innocent people were killed, 13 others were injured. The victims range in age from 14 to 76. They include a father and his son, a husband and wife, family matriarchs and patriarchs. The governor expressing relief the threat is over.
Like many people, I'm breathing a sigh of relief tonight knowing that Robert Card is no longer a threat to anyone. I know there are some people, and many people, who share that sentiment, but I also know that his death may not bring solace to many. But now is the time to heal.
At 7:45 this evening is when Mr. Card was located. I won't give you an exact address. It was near the river along Androscoggin in Lisbon Falls.
The news coming down now a day after the FBI raided Card's home, where authorities said a suicide note addressed to his son was found. Authorities said they received hundreds of tips from the public on Card. He was a certified firearms instructor with the Army Reserves, who officials said had a history of mental illness. We're also learning more information, Steve, is expected to come down tomorrow. Back to you.
Very well. All right, thanks, Stephanie.
Here is a clip of Sean Hodgson, Robert Card's best friend, describing Robert's behavioral changes. These changes were caused by the harassment.
Card spent most of his life in the small Maine town of Bowdoin, where his family had lived for generations. He was a sergeant first class in the Army Reserve, training cadets on grenades and heavy weapons. And that's where he first met his friend, Sean Hodgson.
Great guy, you can always rely on him. A guy would hand you money out of his own pocket and really didn't care if you paid him back or not. I lost my place to live. I got evicted. I called Robert Card and unexpectedly told me to get my butt up here. And he helped me out, gave me a place to live until I got back on my feet.
Sean Hodgson was Robert Card's best friend. He was also a delivery driver for the same company, and they would often spend their nights as they are driving their trucks on speakerphone with one another, just kind of passing the time chatting. There was a real trust there.
Once we got our schedules aligned, we started going bowling on our days off. Just in time, bowling alley.
The two men supported each other through difficult times in their lives. It was Sean Hodgson who was one of the first to notice and report changes in Robert Card's behavior.
He would call me and vent. I listened to him. I listened to all his rants, all the good stuff, all the bad stuff. So I don't know why. He believed people were alienating him, and it wasn't the case. It was with him increasingly getting worse, thinking people were talking about him, including his own family. You know, he was thinking people were calling him a pedophile. It hurt his feelings bad, and it struck him in the heart because he does love kids. He's got his own son.
Here is Robert Card's ex-wife describing the gang-stalking harassment tactic of a whisper campaign. Community members are recruited and paid to do this. Robert Card amasses guns because he feels the targeting.
In the spring of 2023, Card's ex-wife, Cara Lamb, got an urgent message from their teenage son, Colby.
He said he didn't want to go to his dad's anymore. That he didn't feel safe. You know, his dad basically was telling Colby, as they're in a big box store, Lowe's or Home Depot or somewhere like that, you know, they're over here in aisle 1, and Rob is absolutely convinced that he can hear what these two 90-year-old little mom and pop couple that are 4 feet tall are saying very specific things about Rob, and that he can hear them that far away. That he was a pedophile. That he was gay. His dad was very, very adamant that he heard this, and if you didn't believe that he heard it, you were in on it. You were against him. He was afraid his dad was getting violent and getting so aggressive that he was going to be physically violent.
And there was another concern. Colby said his father was amassing guns.
I asked him how many guns that was, and he says, I don't know. It could be 10, 15. I was incredibly concerned that calling the police and having them show up in his driveway, I didn't want it to come back on Colby, and I said, listen, let's go talk to the school resource officer and ask, what do we do? What can we do in this scenario? Because if this comes from us, Rob is going to take it out on Colby.
Next, the cops are called in on him after he tried to fight someone. The first group of people that the police talked to, either knowingly or unknowingly, conduct a smear campaign and exaggerate Robert's threat level. This primes the police to take more aggressive action. Typical gang-stalking protocol is to covertly create situations that voluntarily or involuntarily push the target into a psych ward. Calling the cops on someone is classic. It is always difficult to pinpoint who exactly the perpetrators are because there are many flying monkeys and useful idiots that play along.
2 months after the sheriff's office and Army Reserve were alerted to Card's condition, his unit made its annual training trip to West Point. Almost immediately, he tried to fight another reservist, then locked himself in his room.
Next morning, Card refuses to answer the door again. Soldiers huddle up and they decide, we got to get the police involved because this is somebody who might be in crisis. They call the New York State Police.
Body cam footage shows the state police arriving. First Sergeant Moat and other reservists explained the situation to the troopers.
Our concern is that he's going to hurt himself or someone else. Okay. He needs to be evaluated. He needs to talk to a medical professional.
He's like hearing voices, like it's like paranoid to like the nth degree. Like it's weird. It's really weird.
The more concerning part is he was never like this.
Never. And he's a gun nut too. He has a lot of guns. He just spent 14 grand on a scope too. So he's got, I don't know. I don't know what he's capable of. I'm not insinuating anything, but I'm just saying he does have a ton of guns. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Robert, this is Trooper Katz with the State Police. Can you open the door for me, please?
Thank you, my man. You want to throw a shirt on? I'll come in and talk to you.
Now this clip is extremely important. Robert Card, on camera, explains to cops that he is experiencing a full-blown smear campaign that is ruining his image and reputation. He even said that someone admitted their involvement to him. Certain community members are gaslighting him, which makes him seem unstable. What Robert Card never realized is that this is a covert, coordinated COINTELPRO-style harassment. The involved perpetrators do not need to personally know each other. There is already an established network with the necessary communication systems to organize any harassment across vast regions.
What's going on that your staff is calling, concerned about you? What's going on that your staff is concerned about you calling us?
Because I flipped out on someone messing around with me, and they're cowards and ran away, and
Okay.
I didn't do anything wrong. I haven't been physical with anyone.
Yeah, no one's alleging that.
Yeah, no.
So,
Yeah.
what was it that caused the issue last night?
They keep saying shit behind my back. I confront them, and they pretend like I'm here and stuff.
Okay. Who in particular is
It's happening everywhere, so
all right.
Hearing bits and pieces of all of it, and it's just getting old. And I confront people, and it doesn't stop. So.
Okay. All right. So we talked to a few of them today, and they're saying like nothing like that is happening. They're talking about how good of a friend they are to you. You guys have been great friends for a decade now, and they're not sure what's going on. They're not saying these things behind your back. They're not calling you names or anything like that.
Yeah.
And they're concerned because they don't understand why you think that they are.
I don't know.
I mean, you say that they're talking about you behind your back, but you actually hear them saying these things,
Yeah,
or
I'm hearing them, yeah.
Okay. Well, so why would they tell us that they weren't saying those things?
I don't know.
I mean, does it make sense that someone that you've been good friends with for over a decade would all of a sudden just start saying these things about you?
It's happening everywhere, so yeah.
What do you
it's
mean by
making
that?
A lot of sense.
What do you mean by that? It's happening everywhere.
At work, I had to quit my job, go to a different place to try to leave it, and then it's there as well. So.
What were they saying at work?
Huh?
What kind of stuff were they?
I'm gay. I'm a pedophile. I like little boys. I like little girls.
And what kind of stuff were your friends talking about you?
Same exact stuff. It's the same thing over and over.
Do the people at where you work know the people that you serve with?
They live in Boston. They're all somewhat close, yeah, areas.
But do they know each other?
Do they know each other?
I don't know.
So when you say you hear bits and pieces, how do you hear the bits and pieces?
Just
like,
throwing
when you're
in
not
conversations, or when I turn my back.
Oh, so you're...
Then I go and confront them, and yeah.
Okay.
I know it's happening because one guy at work actually had the nuts to say, yeah, this isn't what an innocent person would do. You wouldn't be walking away pretending you don't hear them. So I know it's happening because everyone's fucking with me. It's getting old.
Okay.
Robert, are you on any prescription medication right now?
No.
Nothing at all?
No.
Okay. All right. They mentioned that you have some hearing aids, right?
Yeah.
That you, how long have you had those?
4 months, 3 months now.
Okay. All right. How long have these issues been going on at home, work, here?
Been about 6 months now.
Okay.
And
All
when
right.
did you say you got the hearing aids?
3 months ago, because I was hearing shit, and everyone was looking at me and talking, and I watch people. That's what I do. No one looks at me. No one talks. Like, I'm pretty invisible until all of a sudden now everyone fucking knows who I am.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. All these rumors, freaking, I don't know, I've heard it's online someplace. I can't find the shit. No one will tell me about it, but...
What do you mean when you say it's online?
All of these rumors about me being gay, pedophile.
But you haven't been able to find it online anywhere?
I haven't, no.
Okay.
Did someone tell you that it was online?
I've overheard it, yeah. Just little bits and pieces I'm just catching over and over. So.
Okay. So, the staff here is concerned about you to the point that they have command directed you to talk with a counselor. Okay?
All right.
So, they are in the position now to take you to a counselor today to talk with someone.
All right.
Okay? Do you know where that would take place?
No idea.
So that would take place over at Keller at West Point, on the other side of the river. Are you familiar with that place?
No.
Okay. So it's a drive up the Taconic to 84 across the river, and then back down just because of storms shut down a couple roads for us. Okay. Are you willing to do that? Would you be willing
I have to if it's command directive, obviously.
Okay.
But
well, I mean,
is it going to help
when I say-
anything? No.
I don't know.
I would rather have people stop talking, stop looking at me. I'm a fucking private person that don't like fucking my shit out there.
I can understand that.
Yeah. I can too.
I can absolutely understand that.
So, these guys here have been your friends for a long time, right?
No, apparently not. So.
But no, think
But this is a new development you're saying in the
Think
last
about
6 months or 3
No.
months you're saying,
yeah,
man, you know?
right? Up until, what, 6 months ago or so.
I don't have any real good friends, obviously.
But I don't believe that's
but-
true. I think something's going on.
Something's happening, right? Because up until 6 months ago, right, you trust these guys with your life, right?
And
Every weekend, I guess.
We're both service members.
Yep. I know how it
And
is.
there's nobody tighter than your
Yep.
brothers.
So these guys, I mean, I hope you understand that they're concerned enough about your welfare that they called us.
Oh, because they're scared, because I'm going to friggin' do something, because I am capable.
Like, what do you mean by that?
Huh?
What do you mean by that?
Nothing. No.
Okay. All right. Well, like he said, you're going to have to go to Keller Army Hospital, okay? Speak with a counselor, all right? We just don't want there to be any issues on the way there or while you're there. I mean, obviously, while you're there, you know, they have plenty of people there that are willing to help you out, all right? We don't want any incidents on the way there, all right?
Do you think that you can do that?
Yes.
Okay. Because
Robert Card didn't hear voices, as in the typical auditory hallucination of voices within your head. This was a misinterpretation of what he said. He was hearing people whisper negative things about him behind his back. He was given hearing aids which he accepted. This was his attempt to solve the situation. He was in disbelief of what he was hearing from people that he thought were his friends. He chose to make sure his hearing was intact and verify what he was hearing. It was a half measure. What he really wanted was for the insults to stop. He knew they were happening. However, they were not stopping and everyone was dismissing his complaints. The hearing aids were a desperate attempt to do something about the issue. Robert Card's sister, Nicole Hurling, mentions this in a news report. Hurling and her husband, James, share the view expressed in an analysis from the Boston University CTE Center that Card had a brain injury that likely played a role in his mental health. The couple also said the hearing aids Card was using made things worse. He plugged them in, turned them up and said, "I'm going to figure out what these people are saying about me," Nicole Hurling said. Then, with the injury, he wasn't able to make these connections and pathways, like maybe you or I might be able to, and it drove him, literally, insane. He was still given a psychiatric diagnosis of brief psychotic disorder. This was stated in the Department of Defense report based on Walter Reed Medical Center's forensic autopsy. It was heavily redacted. After Robert's death, it was discovered that he had severe traumatic brain injury. The military did not find that it was due to blasts from the grenades. The mental status examination, DA Form 3822, noted that SFC Card was experiencing auditory hallucinations and paranoia and his cognition and perceptions were impaired. The diagnosis was unspecified psychosis not due to substance or physiological condition. His discharge diagnosis was listed as brief psychotic disorder.
Well, we have it here. This is the 22-page forensic analysis of Robert Card by Walter Reed Medical Center. We were able to get it through a public records request, but if you flip through the pages, you'll notice just how much is redacted, and in some cases, nearly entire pages are fully blacked out.
So there's not a belief that anything connected to a service would have had an impact on his brain health?
I'm going to defer that to Walter Reed Medical Center.
When the Army's report on Robert Card was released last summer, it was sent to Walter Reed Medical Center for expert analysis. The cover page of their findings details the reasons for referral. Due to the appearance of conflicting medical opinions, a determining opinion on whether SFC Card's mental illness in July of 2023, which resulted in hospitalization, was in the line of duty. Card was a grenade range instructor and may have been exposed to thousands of low-level blasts.
I strongly believe that Robbie had a traumatic brain injury. I think that he was able to function really well for a long time.
Card's sister and brother-in-law telling us just days ago they share the belief expressed by the Boston University CTE Center that Card had traumatic brain injuries, which likely played a role in his symptoms.
And we didn't have Rob's intact brain, so what we did have showed the blast overpressure, which is the really important part because it shows aggression levels, mood changes, those types of things.
Last summer, the then leader of the Army Reserve told reporters that Card was likely injured off-duty, referencing information provided by the Card family.
So the fall from the house on a ladder, I believe, is the injury that took place. The amount of exposure that he had is to other shock is relatively minor.
The document offers no publicly available insight into whether Card had a service-related brain injury, nor does it provide an opinion on whether Four Winds, where Card was hospitalized for mental health treatment, complied with the standard of care.
We don't have the records from Four Winds, but what I do understand is that he had threatened people, had a hit list when he was at Four Winds. That would have been really concerning for me to know as his sister.
The DHA explained the redaction, saying some are exempt from release due to being internal records that are deliberative in nature and part of the decision-making process, citing another exemption which they claim allows records to be withheld when disclosure of such information would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy.
I did everything that I could to help them and support them in their investigation, and they gave us nothing.
For Maine's Total Coverage, I'm Terry Stackhouse.
Robert Card's family is also searching for accountability and answers. They've pointed to his years as a grenade trainer in the Army and injuries to his brain discovered by Boston University's Special CTE Center. Dr. Ann McKee runs the center.
In Mr. Card's brain, what we saw was interface astrogliosis, which is a type of scarring, an inflammation of the brain that has been found after blast injury, but also has been found in contact sport athletes. What we knew from the clinicians who went back and talked to the family was that he had been exposed to grenade explosions repetitively. So knowing that he had a very substantial exposure to these grenade explosions, we thought it was most likely that his traumatic brain injury was secondary to that exposure.
The Army, however, offered a different theory. It said Card had only sustained relatively minor exposure to blasts, and it suggested his brain injury could have been related to a fall from a roof in 2008, in which he broke his neck.
So we've never seen the type of brain injury, the brain damage that we found in Robert Card after a single event, such as a single fall. Now, could that single injury have made the other injury worse? It's possible that it added to it, but as a single event, it doesn't explain the changes we found under the microscope.
Nevertheless, Dr. McKee said it is impossible to know the role of the brain injury in Card's rampage.
Everybody wants A to cause B, right? It's just too simple. When you say, did that brain injury cause him to kill 18 people? Well, I can't say that. You can't. It probably contributed to the story, but how much it contributed, that I don't know.
PSOs, take targets.
We need to learn more about exposures in the military, not just in combat, but in training and exercises. These are injuries that we haven't paid attention to for hundreds of years, and now we're learning they can have disastrous effects.
After Dr. McKee's findings were made public, the Pentagon announced they were issuing new guidelines on blast exposure and said they were expanding cognitive testing to monitor service members' brain health.
What I found interesting about this family is that she has...
I want to make sure that there's accountability. I want to see that happen. And my question is, what the hell are we going to do for the people that have traumatic brain injuries today? What are we going to do for their families who are experiencing it today?
They need to show that they're making these changes, and it needs to be transparent to families who've been affected by brain injuries.
I agree that his brain injury was not caused by blasts from grenades. His brain injury was caused by a directed energy weapon that fired pulsed high-powered microwaves. Here is the description of Robert Card's brain damage. His family released the findings in order to help prevent future tragedies. Dr. McKee found Card had significant evidence of traumatic brain injuries at the time of the shootings. Robert Card had evidence of traumatic brain injury. In the white matter, the nerve fibers that allow for communication between different areas of the brain, there was significant degeneration, axonal and myelin loss, inflammation, and small blood vessel injury. There was no evidence of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, said Dr. McKee, director of the BU CTE Center. These findings align with our previous studies on the effects of blast injury in humans and experimental models. While I cannot say with certainty that these pathological findings underlie Mr. Card's behavioral changes in the last 10 months of life, based on our previous work, brain injury likely played a role in his symptoms. Again, Robert Card has evidence of traumatic brain injury. In the white matter, there was significant degeneration, axonal and myelin loss, inflammation, and small blood vessel injury. Robert Card experienced severe white matter loss. Robert Card had a traumatic brain injury. Traumatic brain injury and white matter loss are exactly what individuals with Havana syndrome or anomalous health incidents, AHI, show in their brain scans. Here are videos and images on traumatic brain injury.
So what happens when you have a more subtle form of brain injury? We have the gray matter here, we have the white matter here. The gray matter are where the cell bodies are. The white matter is where these long filaments extend to other parts of the brain and the spinal cord. And as you know, there's at any interface between substances of different densities, because we do have a different density between the gray matter and the white matter is filled with these axons and tends to be stiffer. So you can imagine when you hit your head, the gray matter is going to slide across the white matter. It's called shearing injury. And what we see there is that the interface between gray matter and white matter is this destruction or disruption of these axons. Now some of this, and this is usually a fatal event to the neurons. They don't recover from this. They'll stop working. However, you can get even more subtle injury where the axons aren't really fully disrupted. So this becomes, can you imagine how hard it must be to see an axon that's just slightly injured? It's smaller than the size of a human hair, and you're asking me, the neuroradiologist, to pick it up. It's quite a challenge. What does this diffuse axonal injury look like? So this is DAI. You've probably heard it. You may have heard about that before. Diffuse axonal injury is shown up as white spots at the interface between the gray and the white matter. Some of them can be deeper, depending on where these axons are sheared off. So we look for these white spots. When I get an MRI from somebody who's had brain trauma, I look for these things. The problem with the white spots is they're not specific. Okay? Anyone who's 50 years or older in the audience has probably collected a few of these things, just as a natural aging phenomenon. It becomes accelerated if you smoke, if you have high blood pressure, if you have high cholesterol levels, if you're inactive. They tend to accumulate. We call it microangiopathic disease because my favorite little blood vessels get plugged up. And they cause little white spots. Now, if you're 20, you should never have any of these. So if I see somebody who's had brain trauma and they're 20 years old, and they have these things, I'd say, this is pretty good evidence to me that you've hit your head. Now, even better evidence, I'm going to show you next, on this iron-sensitive sequence. I showed you one before, it was normal. This iron-sensitive sequence is not normal. Now, this flare sequence, which shows us the white spots, is normal in this patient, but we see these black spots on the iron-sensitive sequence. No imaging study for trauma using MRI is complete without this iron-sensitive sequence. You must have it because it is showing exactly where there has been bleeding in the brain. And a normal brain should have no blood in it, unless you have a history of high blood pressure, a bleeding disorder, you're on an anticoagulant, or you've hit your head. So when I see something like this, I need to know, okay, does this patient have any of these other disorders? And if they don't, and I see these, it's diagnostic for me for head trauma. Okay, so if I see a patient who has this, I don't have any questions. This is virtually, completely 100% diagnostic of a brain injury. And furthermore, it's the distribution of this tissue loss here that's very important as well. We tend to see it in the front of the brain, in the anterior frontal lobes, and in the anterior temporal lobes.
This is Dr. Cal Shipley with a review of diffuse axonal injury. Before we get started, let me mention that you can access hundreds of my medically related presentations at www.calshipleymd.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Dr. Cal Shipley. Diffuse axonal injury is a potentially severe form of traumatic brain injury and results from sudden changes in velocity of the head. The brain motion underlying diffuse axonal injury is rotational, also referred to as angular, as depicted here. Taking a look at some of the physics involved in diffuse axonal injury, the brain is composed of both gray and white matter. These two types of tissue differ in their densities. Much of the gray matter is located on the surface of the cerebral hemispheres and the cerebellum. White matter forms the bulk of the deep portions of the cerebral hemispheres and the cerebellum, but there are aggregates of gray matter, such as the basal ganglia and brainstem nuclei, scattered throughout. It is at the interface between the gray matter and white matter that most axonal injury occurs, with rapid deceleration injuries of the brain. Now let's take a look at the anatomy of the neuron. The human brain is a complex web of billions of interconnected cells known as neurons. Neurons are specialized cells which have a nucleus. Each neuron cell has multiple arm-like projections called dendrites. The neuron also gives rise to a long filamentous structure known as an axon. Neurons can have multiple dendrites, but usually have only one axon. Neurons communicate with one another by sending chemically generated electrical impulses through their dendrites and axons. The electrochemical impulses are transferred from one neuron to another at junctions known as synapses. Typically, the synapse occurs between the axon of one neuron cell and the dendrite of another, but synaptic junctions may also occur between dendrites or between axons. The axons are surrounded at intervals by a tissue known as myelin, which facilitates movement of the electrical impulse and prevents leakage of the charge into surrounding tissues. Normal myelination is critical to nervous system function, and loss of myelin can lead to serious disorders such as multiple sclerosis. Tens of millions of neuronal axons lie across the junction of the gray matter and the white matter of the brain, and it is this orientation which gives rise to the nerve shear damage seen in diffuse axonal injury. As mentioned previously, in acceleration-deceleration injuries of the brain, it is the rotational or angular movement of the brain that causes diffuse axonal injury. The gray matter and white matter have different densities. As a result, when the brain is accelerated and then suddenly decelerated in an angular motion, the gray matter and white matter move at different velocities. At their junction, the two tissues slide over one another, stretching neuronal axons. This is known as shear effect. Stretching of the axons is known as primary injury, and this stretching, rather than actual tearing of the axons during shear, is considered to be the basis for diffuse axonal injury. Within hours to days after stretching of the nerve axons during primary injury, biochemical changes at the cellular level result in loss of axonal function. This is known as secondary injury, and it appears to occur in two forms. The first form of secondary injury involves swelling and rupture of the nerve axons, with formation of characteristic axonal bulbs on the ruptured ends. This results in an immediate loss of nerve impulse transmission across the axon. The second form of secondary injury is the formation of swellings, also known as varicosities, along the length of the axon. Axonal varicosities may result in only a partial loss of nerve impulse transmission. Loss of myelin may also occur in association with the formation of axonal varicosities, eventually resulting in complete loss of nerve impulse transmission.
Now here are clips showing evidence that victims of Havana syndrome or anomalous health incidents, AHI, often suffer from traumatic brain injuries caused by directed energy weapons. Yes, the brain damage from a directed energy weapon attack presents as traumatic brain injury.
A new report by a U.S. National Academy of Sciences committee has found that directed microwave radiation is the likely cause of illnesses among American diplomats in Cuba and China. Microwave weapons work in much the same way as an ordinary microwave oven. A strong electrical current is fed into a magnetron. A magnetron is a high-powered vacuum tube that oscillates microwaves to produce high-energy microwave radiation. However, in a microwave oven, this energy bounces around within the walls of the oven. Instead of containing the energy inside a box, a microwave weapon concentrates the energy into a focused direction with minimal broadening of the energy stream. This is why it's also called a directed energy weapon. AP reports the committee's finding provides the most definitive explanation yet of the illness that struck scores of government employees, first at the U.S. Embassy in Havana in 2016, and then in China and other countries. Many of the officers suffered from dizziness, fatigue, headaches, and loss of hearing, memory imbalance, and some were forced into permanent retirement.
Tonight, we have important developments in our 5-year investigation of mysterious brain injuries reported by U.S. national security officials. The injured include White House staff, CIA officers, FBI agents, military officers, and their families. Many believe that they were wounded by a secret weapon that fires a high-energy beam of microwaves or ultrasound. This is our 4th story.
I want to ask a question about Havana syndrome, or AHIs, these debilitating neurological conditions. State Department personnel, intelligence community, military, even families. Have directed energy weapons been used against U.S. government personnel?
Oh, I do not believe in the conclusions that we've seen in the past, and I think evidence in time will prove me correct, that these things happened by accident, that these things were a result of mass hysteria or some pre-existing conditions. Now, in some cases, maybe. But I have no doubt in my mind that something caused people to be suffering from these things in different posts around the world, not just limited to Havana. There's a lot of work still going on. I think we're going to learn a lot more about it over the next few years as more work goes into it. But I've met some of these people. I've interacted with them for years. And I can't explain every case, but I think there are most definitely cases where there is no logical explanation other than the fact that some external mechanism caused them to suffer brain injuries that in many cases look like they were hit over the head with a baseball bat or assaulted somewhere. We can't ignore that. And in the meantime, what we have to ensure is that whether they were State Department personnel or working for some other agency, that those people are getting the treatment and the support that they need. And it's a top commitment of mine to make sure these are people we sent abroad to serve our country. They were harmed in the service of our country, and they deserve our ongoing support, not being accused of things like mass hysteria or, you know, they're just...
It's government gaslighting.
Well, I think it's outrageous. And I don't know what the intent was behind that, but ultimately, this State Department is going to be transparent with them. Anything we know, they will know. And in the meantime, we are going to assume the worst, and we're going to treat them as if they were victims. No matter what, we're going to treat them as they were people that were harmed by serving our country overseas.
Okay. We just have a couple of minutes left here.
Here are the specific reports on white matter loss that occurred in the brains of diplomats with Havana syndrome or AHI. The U.S. diplomats studied had 5% less white matter volume than the healthy volunteers did, according to the Journal of the American Medical Association. The researchers observed significantly smaller whole brain white matter volume among the former U.S. Embassy employees compared with healthy controls, as well as significantly smaller frontal, occipital, and parietal lobe white matter volumes. Here is an example of such a weapon. This is real patented technology. It was made by the U.S., not China, not Russia, not Iran. This weapon is a man-portable hand-held version of the active denial system. Marine Corps used a non-lethal directed energy rifle to induce nausea in Oakland, California, during the Urban Warrior drill in 1999. They called it a sound wave rifle.
As a hostile act. The technology makes you nauseous. In the past, in a situation like that, she might have been shot. In the future, we want to give our Marines non-lethal options where they can say, no, she's not armed, maybe threatening, but I don't want to kill her, or I don't want to kill him, or them. Use your sound wave rifle, I guess you could call it, and down they go.
Yeah, him a prisoner, huh?
Now you're going to see an execution. Come on, you let's go! Let's go! People dying in line! One more.
Now, you might be wondering why? Why would he be targeted? Why would his image be smeared? Why would he be hit with a directed energy weapon? If he did get hit, when did he get hit? This is where you have to conduct your own research into targeted individuals and gangstalking. Go through all the videos on my channel. Robert Card could have been targeted for several reasons. He could have pissed off someone with the connections to target him. He could have been targeted out of jealousy or cult ideology. If he was going to expose something, he may have been tortured in order to silence him. He may have been non-consensually used as a guinea pig for an experiment conducted by the government. Directed energy weapons and Havana syndrome are unknown to the average American. If Robert Card was hit, he would have had absolutely no idea as to what caused it. Especially given his military background, he may have attributed it to his military-related activities, or he downplayed it as something else. Here are videos of whistleblowers trying to warn the public. FBI Bureau Chief Ted Gunderson uses the words micro-beams, short for microwave beams. He was referring to directed energy attacks being used on victims of gangstalking. Full video on my channel.
I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if anybody's going to do anything about it. Hopefully they will. Based on 28 years' experience and research, I have determined there are thousands of victims who have been targeted by an illegal U.S. government rogue criminal enterprise that is active 24 hours a day throughout the United States. A network of victims who work with me have reached the same conclusion based on, one, their personal experience. These are the people who have come to me. Two, the significant number of victims, thousands of them. And three, the extent and intensity of the harassment. I'm talking about micro beams, I'm talking about surveillances, I'm talking about poison gas, everything, the evil that you can think of. I believe this well-organized, sophisticated operation has a central command located somewhere in the United States with multiple satellite offices scattered throughout the country. This criminal enterprise by this rogue element targets an individual. It is necessary to, in order to target them, they one, identify the individual, two, outline the reason the victim is targeted, and three, document and identify the weapons and tactics being directed against him or her. So I will do that in this lecture that I'm giving right here.
Sworn affidavit exposing illegal, COINTELPRO, Gangstalking operations. I have documentation and know that throughout the U.S., operating 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, there is a central command, located within the U.S. with multiple satellite offices, whose administrators can instantly initiate surveillance, phone taps, and harassment against any individual in the country. A sophisticated network of rogue operatives has secretly infiltrated the FBI, other intelligence agencies including the CIA, and other key government positions. This illegal surveillance and harassment program is being called gang stalking and organized stalking by the victims targeted by it. NSA whistleblower Karen Stewart says fusion centers are being used for illegal warrantless surveillance and revenge for hire services on innocent Americans. In addition, electromagnetic weapons are deployed for torture. Full video of her testimony on my channel.
I think the stalking and harassment went from 2006 to 2009 when they put me on administrative leave. I hired a lawyer to sue them, and in 2010 they fired me against the EEOC judge's orders. And that's when I found out, well, a little bit before that, but that's when I found out about NSA and other federal agencies using the FBI fusion centers as vengeance for hire entities. Now, the fusion centers were created after 9/11. You had heads of various intelligence agencies, including NSA, telling the Congress, we don't know what happened. It was an intelligence failure, but we think that if you give us a place in each state, some kind of center where we can fuse information from the national level down to the local level, we can head off these kinds of terrorist attacks. And so at this point in time, after 20 years, there are 80 fusion centers all over the United States. It is a network. And they supposedly are watching for terrorist plots, trying to identify terrorists, et cetera, et cetera. And so far in 22 years, they have found not one terrorist, not one terrorist group, not one terrorist plot, and stopped no terrorist plot whatsoever. And Congress is asking them, what are you doing with the billions of dollars that we give you? And they refuse to tell them. They basically say, you don't have the clearance, so we're not telling you, which is insane. But what they have done is they have created a Tier 3 and Tier 4 level terrorist list of regular Americans, and they call them non-investigative subjects. Well, if these are dangerous people, why are you not investigating them? Why would they be non-investigative subjects? Well, because they're fraudulently put on Tier 3 and Tier 4. And then they are defamed. The fusion center operatives go throughout the neighborhood, show their shiny little badges, and tell them, we have a problem in your neighborhood. You know, John Smith is, we think he's a terrorist, and he has predilections for pedophilia and all kinds of other stuff. And they scare the heck out of these civilians who don't have any idea that they're lying. They do create false dossiers right and left. There are hundreds of thousands of false dossiers. And once they target you, they never let go. They actually go through the neighborhood, tell them, we need you to do this, this, and this to them. And it can be quite petty. Like, Tim, you have to go over and slit John's tire, every Tuesday morning. For $100, we'll give you a gift card. But they can also basically enlist the neighbors to allow or to participate in hitting these people with electromagnetic weapons. These are the types of weapons that hit our diplomats and they can be quite devastating. They go through almost anything and everything, and you can see my face is swollen. I mean, I'm old, but my face is still swollen from these weapons hitting my home 24/7. And of course, police don't have any idea what you're talking about, or they're told to butt out. Well, like I said, they've turned into vengeance for hire entities, but they are into human trafficking, and they get, and I'm going to call it contracts on people. It sounds like it's a smorgasbord. Once you're on this list, then they're free to target you for experimentation, for non-consensual experimentation, because secretly what they've done by listing you as a terrorist is to secretly strip you of your constitutional, civil, and human rights. And if you remember, Bush said, we'll hunt you down and kill you wherever you are. We don't care, you know, what country you're in. We reserve the right to just murder you. They have interpreted that as, hey, if we're calling them terrorists and stripping them of their rights, why kill them all at once? Why don't we just use them to experiment on and test our weapons on? I mean, after all, there is a new electromagnetic weapons war, weapons race. So why not just use it on these people who don't count? We've erased them. You know, so we are human trafficked. They make money off of us. And I would say that not only do the contractors basically get in there and say, hey, could you just go ahead and declare like 20 people to be terrorists so we can experiment on them with this new device? But they also seem to be contracted by powerful, influential people who say, you know, my cousin Fred, he's going to be a co-inheritor and I don't want him to live. So my rich uncle is going to die, and I don't want my cousin to have any of it. So why don't you put him as a terrorist and get rid of him? You know, there's one woman that I met who was put on the list because she refused someone's sexual advance, and now she's on the list for life. So if people say, well, I didn't work for the government, I certainly didn't work for the intelligence community, I should be safe, it's not my problem. No, it is your problem. And it could be your mother's problem, your sister's problem, your son's problem, your grandchild's problem. So the fusion centers I've described as Trojan horses. They're supposed to be doing one thing when they are entirely doing another. They are attacking the people that they are supposed to be protecting. So the fusion centers need to be frozen, shut down, audited, and the people in the domestic terrorism unit especially need to be apprehended and questioned as terrorists.
Now listen to the testimony of Robert Card's sister and brother-in-law. It is heartbreaking. We should never allow this to happen again. We should not allow ourselves to become desensitized to mass shootings. We should never overlook mind control torture and covert harassment coordinated by domestic rogue criminal actors.
Tell us who you are.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is James Hurling. I am the husband of Nicole Hurling. Brother-in-law to Robert Card II. We extend our sincere gratitude to the Commission for welcoming us back, providing us with this invaluable opportunity to engage with you once again. Together, let us embark on this journey with renewed enthusiasm and determination as we strive to build a brighter future where we can all find hope, a hope and an openness to change, the power to change, and to expect the change that we are all seeking. First, I would like to open with recognizing the loved ones who were lost on October 25th. Our family will never forget your names.
Take your time, there's no rush.
In the legacy they have left, each of your names are on our wall in our homes. As a constant reminder, as well as they're on our property, so we can see them as we leave home each day and to return home. We have heard their stories, and we will be using them as fuel to help us make this change in this nation. To the survivors and the family members we pass by in our community, We may not recognize each other, but we feel your pain and are here in support of you. There is no way for us to express the sorrow we feel. I am tremendously sorry for the pain that you are going through. When we were here last with my wife and other family members, I wanted to touch base on some personal timeline I experienced and issues our family dealt with that we didn't get to discuss as much during our last meeting. I'd like to note that moving forward, I'll refer Robert Card II as Robbie, the name by which I knew him, and it is the name that his sister used for him. As you know, this tragedy started for us in the beginning of 2023, without us knowing how it would end. I witnessed the exhausting time that my wife had spent meeting with her brother, Ryan, talking on the phone long into the night, desperately trying to figure out what to do. She worked tirelessly, doing investigating work, attempting to gather information from her brother's hearing aid specialist, the suicide hotline, her current employer, and trying to make any contact with someone in the Army Reservist Department, which was seemingly impossible. Numerous phone calls were never returned or answered. I remember Nikki saying to me that she did not feel it was safe for Robbie to go to drills. She was concerned he may hurt someone and wanted to desperately speak to somebody in the reserve. I told her that we can't stop him from going, and that if something were to happen, I'm sure that they would take care of it, as they are the military. So I thought. It was hard for me as a husband to see this tireless work that she put in trying to get her brother, Robbie, the help that he needed and not accomplish anything. While this was happening, Robbie was pushing all of us away. I will never forget the day Nikki came to me and let me know that her brother Ryan had called her to tell her that Robbie is being taken to an Army hospital and that something had happened. Hearing that he was being taken to the military hospital was sadly a huge relief for us. We thought that he would finally get the care and the help that he needed. We were then informed that he would be in for what we thought was 30 days. We had little information about him being transferred to Four Winds and when he would be released. When Nikki finally learned he was coming home, we were both extremely concerned. At this time, Robbie had totally pushed Nikki away and we were no longer in direct contact with him. Although concerned, we assumed the best regarding of our healthcare system and believed that if they were releasing him, they must have assessed him to be stable and safe. On October 25th, Nikki and I were together in Lewiston Auburn area, running errands while our daughter was attending a dance class. We received a call from the dance studio informing us that they were canceling the class due to a situation and needed to come immediately to pick up our daughter. Uncertain of the circumstance, we heard sirens around in the area and detected the scent of smoke, leading us to speculate about a possible fire. Then we learned that there was an active shooter situation unfolding. Nikki expressed disbelief, wondering who could commit such an act. Meanwhile, I couldn't shake the thought it might be another instance of a culture or hate-based violence. As we proceeded the news, we discovered that an incident occurred at a bowling alley, frequented by friends that we knew. I earnestly reached out to see if they were attending that night. I had found out that they had been in another league and in a different bowling alley. I later learned through this tragedy that we did have other friends that were there as well. We hurried to collect our daughter, driving through the city while police cars were rushing past. Upon reaching Lisbon, we retrieved our daughter and attempted to swing into McDonald's, only to find it was closed. Little did we know that we had just passed by where Robbie's car had been found. And where we were at McDonald's across the street from the industrial park where he was found, later brought the reality of the situation close, where we were to him, and we didn't even know, or we could have just helped him. Arriving home, we informed our other children about the situation and cautioned them to be careful of the interactions with their friends. Then we were able to obtain the viewing of the released picture. I found it strangely familiar and couldn't quite understand, but I felt bad for the person who had the evil taken over him. I shared it with Nikki. She looked at it in the picture and was silent. Just seconds later, her brother Ryan called her. She said to me, "It's Ryan," and yelled at me to show her the picture again. It was at that point we just realized who it was.
If you want to stop at any point, feel free to do so. We have plenty of time. This is very difficult. So feel free to do it as you are able to, okay?
Thank you. Immediately at that time, Nikki got on the phone to communicate to the police force that she identified the shooter to authorities. During this time, the authorities were at disbelief due to the discrepancy of the picture that we were trying to share with them. Meanwhile, when this was happening, my efforts were to try to reach her parents. Proved fear. We couldn't reach them. So we started to hurry to their home while still calling. While this was occurring, Ryan was communicating with us all the possible places while we tried to inform the police of these locations and trying to reach her parents with no answer. During this time also, calls were being dropped while we were talking to the police. Transfers was happening. It seemed so unorganized. Thankfully, when we returned to the home just before we did, her dad picked up. They seemed to be all safe. We found them, and we got them to pack up their things, and we brought them and told them to head over to my parents' house for the safety, as we did not know what to expect from Robbie, or even now, the potential expectation of the media. Now, Robbie's son is left with nothing. This isn't something a son should have to go through, especially since he reached out first. Thankfully, he has a mom that still is standing strong, supporting her son and fighting for the help that her son's Dad should have gotten. It would be ultimately to get to the root cause of this tragedy. We can point fingers of who's at fault, who has failed to make the ultimate contact. But in all reality, we all could have done better, from the sheriff's office to the Army to the family. In order for us to be able to move forward, we need to know what could have been done. But in reality, just like a weed in a garden, we haven't taken care of the weed if we just rip it off. What we see from the top, and I think that it's taken care of. We need to get down deep into the root of the weed and remove it so it won't come back again. Yes, we must remove guns. And yes, confrontation and connection with someone that is all at the surface of the weed. But in order to prevent this from occurring again, we must get to the root and remove it completely so it won't spread. We have discovered that Robbie had a severe traumatic brain injury. One of the worst researchers have even seen from active military personnel that have served even in Afghanistan and Iraq. However, he was not an active soldier. He was a reservist. Regardless of whether you are active or reservist, all soldiers go through the same training process. Medical results have concluded that Robbie had a TBI, traumatic brain injury, that was caused by our own military, not by being in war. His brain was not healthy, and no one knew. He was going through so much in life that his injured brain had no way to function because he failed to get the essential protection that he should have gotten. These soldiers serve to defend our nation and protect the freedom we have. Why don't our soldiers get the protection they deserve? The shirt that I am wearing today in this Mental Awareness Month is to bring the awareness of the focus we need to bring towards this root, the root of which that we must do more to protect our service men and women. They have fought for us. Now we must fight for them. I am hoping that this commission will find that the DoD needs to enhance the protection of our soldiers, because when they release them as civilians, they are releasing them without proper care. This is not an excuse for the behavior and action that Robbie committed. It was a wrongful act of evil. My brother-in-law was not this man. His brain was hijacked.
Yes. Hello. I'm Nikki Hurling, sister of Robert Card II. On behalf of my family, I want to express our deepest apologies for the pain and suffering caused by Robbie's actions on the night of October 25th, 2023. We've agonized over our memories, searching for any signs or actions that could have prevented the tragedy in Lewiston. If we appeared silent, it wasn't because we lacked empathy. We were in shock and disbelief, unable to comprehend that Robbie was capable of such horror. We've hesitated to speak out, mindful of the need to give survivors and victims' families space to heal. Often, I've found myself grappling for the right words, unsure if any could be adequate. Each news report seemed to reopen wounds, and we were adamant about not adding to anyone's pain. If our silence caused pain for some of you, I'm truly sorry. Please know that our thoughts and prayers have consistently been with you, the victims' families, survivors, and all affected by this tragedy. As Mainers, we've closely felt the ripple effects of this anguish throughout our state and nation. I would like to take a moment to express my gratitude to everyone who played a role in keeping people safe and bringing an end to the manhunt by finding Robbie. It is challenging to address all these issues. However, these were the most challenging for me. Firstly, I acknowledge my responsibility as Robbie's sister. I wish I had done everything in my power to get him the help he needed. My pride prevented me from seeking help after facing rejection. Instead, I would feel defeated and withdraw until the next crisis emerged. Looking back, my biggest mistake was not insisting on help, not driving to the base or to the hospital in New York to be with him, not going to his house at 10:30 at night to support him when he texted me. If you loved me, you would help. You would find who these people are online saying these awful things about me. He didn't believe me when I said he was sick. Not crazy. Reflecting on what I could have done differently consumed me, rendering me useless to those around me. Thankfully, through prayer and strength, have enabled me to heed the call. My call to action is to seek help without shame, realizing I have nothing to lose. Hear my battle cry today, and please support me in this journey. This is my call to action. I found accessing my brother's chain of command to be a significant challenge. Despite exhaustive online searches, I couldn't find clear information on where to report my concerns. The information I did come across was outdated, and despite leaving numerous voicemails, none were returned. I am unsure if the VA Crisis Helpline is equipped to handle such data to aid families dealing with crises like ours, involving their loved ones, but such support would be invaluable in our future. I felt deeply troubled and felt helpless on June 3rd, 2023, when a VA crisis worker advised me to not inform the command about my brother's delusions of being called gay or a pedophile. While I didn't believe these accusations to be true, the thought of him potentially facing harassment or differential treatment due to these accusations was distressing. It left me even more concerned about my brother's safety, with nowhere to turn. I grappled with the dilemma of how to disclose the situation without revealing the full truth, and the fear of what might happen if the accusations were true. And he faced further mistreatment weighed heavily on me. I needed a safe haven on May 3rd, 2023, that operated around the clock. For instance, on Wednesday evening at 6:30, while trying to comprehend this confusing situation. I wished for a place where I could seek counsel to take my brother for evaluation, without resorting to the traumatic experience of the emergency department. I believe the Maine Resiliency Center could serve as a solution for such needs. It is crucial to maintain funding to ensure the continued operation and accessibility of such vital service for people in crisis. I am immensely grateful for what our state senators recognize the value of this program and to continue to fund it. I want to address something that has been confirmed following investigations. Robbie was indeed facing harassment from coworkers who mistakenly identified a name on the sex offender list that closely matched his age. Despite my efforts, I didn't expand my search wide enough to discover this until October 25th, when that same person had been mistakenly identified as R. Robert Card II during the manhunt. While it's unclear whether this revelation would have changed the outcome given Robbie's heightened paranoia and stress exacerbated by his new hearing aids, it highlights the pervasive issue of bullying and harassment in workplaces everywhere. Just last Tuesday, I heard of another abuse of power in a workplace. It's frustrating that people don't consider how their actions can impact the livelihood of others, leading to feelings of hopelessness, isolation, and depression. I witness this far too often. I call employers and employees to action, to show boldness in our workplaces, putting an end to the crime of harassment through reporting and adopting a zero-tolerance stance. This is a call to action. I encourage everyone to reflect on the power of kindness. Each of us is battling battles unknown to others, and your kindness could be the spark for positive change in someone's life, even if for a moment or a day. Let us strive to be agents of change, actively working to eliminate workplace bullying and foster environments of compassion and understanding.